Welcome to the Bellwether College Consortium Innovation Series. My name is Rose Martinez. I serve as the director of the Bellwether College Consortium, a nationally respected, member-supported think tank made up of award-winning colleges. It is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Ryan McCall, president of Marion Technical College. He and his Bellwether award-winning team took top honors in the category of planning, governance, and finance at this year's program. The program title, Growth Through Grants, Transforming Marion Technical College via Strategic Partnership, is described as a transformative partnership between Marion Tech and Columbus State Community College. By leveraging strategic funding and collaboration, this rural college initiative cultivates innovation and student success. Now, before I delve into the interview with our esteemed guests, permit me to share a little more about the consortium and its National Bellwether Award competition. The Bellwether Award is presented to a community college program that demonstrates innovation, scalability, replicability, and most importantly, evidence-based and equity-focused outcomes. For those of you who may not be familiar with the consortium, it is charged with addressing critical issues facing community colleges through both applied research and the promotion and replication of best practices. We host the prestigious Bellwether Award competition annually. This is for our public community colleges in the United States and the U.S. territories. We receive numerous submissions, and after a stringent first round of competition, the 30 highest scored community college submissions, those community colleges are invited to join the Bellwether College Consortium and compete in the final round of competition. We have 10 Bellwether finalists who are recognized in each of the 3 categories we award. That is workforce development, planning, governance, and finance, and instructional programs and services. The final round of the competition occurs at what's called the Community College Futures Assembly in San Antonio, Texas. You can find out more information on the consortium, our national competitions, and the Futures Assembly at bellwethercollegeconsortium.com. Now let me move on to the focus of the program. Today, I have the pleasure to welcome Dr. Ryan McCall, president of Marion Technical College, located in Marion, Ohio. Again, congratulations on being named a 2026 Bellwether Award recipient. We're going to go ahead and get started with the presentation, so the floor is yours, Dr. McCall. The first question that I have would be, again, just to give us some background on Marion Technical College, and share some of the critical issue that Marion Tech felt compelled to address, and any stories that you have that illustrate why this change was necessary.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Martinez, for all that you guys do with the Bellwether, and for allowing me to be part of this today to talk a little bit about how we have changed things here at the college, and the work that we've done, and why we've won the Bellwether. So Marion Technical College we're a small rural college in north central Ohio. We're about an hour north of Columbus. And we have a large farming community, but we also have some heavy industry in the community as well. Our biggest programs are in healthcare and business, with engineering and IT not far behind. One of the things we're proud of is we were the first community college in Ohio to offer the bachelor's degree, Bachelor's of Science in Nursing. This last year, we graduated our largest graduating class ever in the history of the college. So we're excited that, we're moving in the right direction. Our goal is to produce 3,000 credentials of value by 2030. And we passed over 600 this year, so we're well on our way to making that happen. All that's good news. But we started out in a different point. On the next slide, we kind of started out in a position of, we knew we needed to improve student outcomes. I became the president just over a decade ago. And when I came in, the board had several things that they'd asked me to try to address. And one of the things that we knew we had to do was improve our student outcomes. At the time, our graduation rate, 3-year graduation rate, was probably sitting around 12 to 15%. Our retention rate was pretty low. And the state of Ohio in 2015, and all that compounded the fact that in 2015, the state of Ohio moved to 100% performance-based funding. So all of our money from the state came from student outcomes. And those outcomes needed to be adjusted for the college and needed to be improved. So we started working on what we could do thinking through what we could do to fix that. Um, the issue is, as a small rural college, we didn't have the resources, monetary and otherwise, personnel, to address those issues. And the fact that rural community colleges, we typically get less money than most other community colleges in urban and suburban areas. And that we usually have a lot harder time helping get or working on getting grants because we don't have the resources to pay a grant writer to do that typically. That those staff members, one, they may not even want to move to our community because it's a rural community and they can make more money other places. And the folks we do get are great people, but a lot of times, especially when we interviewed for the position, I had people telling me that, well, I've written a grant for $20,000. And I'm like, that's great. I need grants for $2 million to make a transformation here. 20,000 is great. It's good for small things, but I need more. And so one of the things we knew we needed was to raise more revenue outside of our traditional pathway by going for grants, to be able to hire the staff that we needed to improve student outcomes, to get the equipment that we needed. We had some pretty dated equipment at the time, and to do renovations to the facility. The building that I'm in right now, we only have two buildings on campus. The building I'm in was built in '76, and we have been doing renovations on it for the last decade to try to get it up to speed because it didn't look like a technical college of today. It was built for the technology of 1976. And so we needed all these different things to help us move the college forward. We knew what our goals were. We knew what we wanted to achieve. We looked at things like the Aspen Prize, and we knew what those goals were. We knew what the state was funding as far as student outcomes. And we knew that we wanted to start on guided pathways work. But we didn't have the resources to do any of those things. And so how do we go about doing that? And that was really the impetus for this, is when we tried to hire a grant writer, it wasn't something that was successful. And so, kind of addressing that framework of what we needed to do, I reached out to Dr. Dave Harrison, who's the president of Columbus State Community College, and basically talked to him about the idea of, do you think we can partner on this grant work? The state of Ohio was pushing us to be more collaborative as institutions across the state, and to partner on different activities, sharing positions and the like. And we had a previous relationship. I'd known Dave for some time, and when I became president, he invited me down to Columbus to have lunch with him and to welcome me as a new president. And so he told me that whatever I needed, to give him a call, and he'd be, see what he could do to help. So when I called him, I was hoping he would say yes. But he said, hey, let me talk to my team and see what we can do. And so there's the information as far as our students being from rural areas, how many students we serve on an annual basis. Vast majority of our students are low income, first generation, 16% are both. And they face a lot of different barriers related to non-academic things, whether it's transportation, because we really don't have public transportation in our area beyond the city. If you're in the county, you can't get here. We don't have, we have students who have housing issues, food issues like many other community colleges, but we didn't have any way to address those either. So those are all parts of that ecosystem and the issues that were critical for us to address moving forward. And that's really where we got into. We needed to find ways to fund those personnel gaps and that infrastructure, and increase our revenue in a different way to help us start addressing those needs. And that's when I really reached out to Dr. to Dave Harrison, Dr. Dave Harrison at Columbus State, to ask this question.
Okay, next question. How did Marion Tech and Columbus State develop a framework for building collaboration and identify what funding opportunities to mine?
Um, once we decided this was something that we thought we wanted to do, we brought teams together from Marion Tech and Columbus State Community College to talk through what it is we were looking at doing and strategically plan what the partnership would look like moving forward. And we spent probably 3 or 4 different sessions coming together and talking about what this would look like and how the partnership would work, what things we would be trying to do, what things we felt like that they needed to do. And so we really came internally and we took those things like the Aspen Prize and guided pathways and the state funding model and really looked at what barriers our students were facing internally, where we were in those areas, and what and the gaps, and what we felt like we could do to move the needle on each of those areas. And so we started talking about that with them, helping them understand what we thought we needed. We came up with an MOU and formalized the partnership, and signed our first agreement, as it says there, in 2018. And that partnership is still in place. The agreement's still in place. And so we each had our different roles that we kind of filled through this.
The next question I have is more about the organizational and partnership development. Share how Marion Tech and Columbus State leveraged their individual institutional strengths to create winning grant proposals to develop cross-functional teams. Share any key roles, responsibilities, and resources that were tapped. Also, if you can speak to the scope of the work, such as the roles, that would be wonderful too.
Yeah, if you go to the next slide, it'll share there that we had different ideas of what that needed to happen, or different roles in what we would do. And one of the first things we asked them to help us with was writing a Title III grant. We had tried in the time I had been here twice to write a Title III grant without success. We brought in an external grant writer to help us. Spent considerable amount of money on that, and we were not successful. But we knew that was the best starting point for us, was a Title III grant to give us the dollars to start doing the things that we needed to have happen. So when Columbus State came on board, they became our grant writer. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. And we kind of determined that scope of work around, okay, especially on Title III, but on the rest of the things moving forward, what kinds of roles can we have? And so it was kind of a 3-tier process, as you see there, of depending on which type of grant it was, what role each of us would play. So if it was something that we felt like we could do internally, we would prepare and submit the proposal, but Columbus State would do an overview for us, do a checklist, a template, and kind of help us provide feedback to us and edits about what we could do, or what they felt like the grant was doing. In some cases, they basically, we developed assigned proposal sections and completed the submission, and they provided, again, that checklist, coordinated the final ready to submit proposal, helped with the narrative, and so forth. And then at the opposite end of that is the author role, and we basically provide data, some planning, and some support, and they take everything and really write it and develop it for us and ask us lots of questions, and we provide them the information. And so depending on the level of the grant will depend on how much we rely on them and how much we do ourselves around the grants and around that work associated with those grants, both pre-grant and post-grant. They also assist us with our post-grant work. So it took, like I said, it took us from the beginning of the end of 2017 through 2018 to really line this out and have it make sense for both groups, both for MTC and Columbus State. And from there, we started down the path. I think if you go to the next slide, that was planning the vision. We prepared and submitted our first proposal after we came up with that way we wanted to go about it. And in the first year, and this was the thing that really stuck out to me, was in the first year, had I hired a grant writer, most grant writers that I know or that I've worked with can probably do 1 to 2 really big grants a year, and then can do some other small ones. But they take, those are big grants are heavy lifts, and big grants are the big federal grants. Uh, Columbus State working with us, we were able to submit both a Title III grant and a National Science Foundation proposal all within the same year, which I don't think we could have done if we would have hired somebody brand new who was not part of higher ed previously and understanding the processes. So if you go to the next slide, um, as we submitted those, basically here's some other activities that we have along the way. Columbus State scans for the opportunities that we have available to us. We also scan for opportunities, and sometimes we send those to Columbus State and say, hey, what do you think of this? They can lead the MTC team in our development. They prepare the draft application. In this case, for the Title III grant, this is how we went through the process. We researched and provided the information that they needed. They did the majority of the grants through grants.gov. We submitted it, but they helped us with that process because of the first time we ever submitted one as a partner. And then they provided us with the direction once we receive a grant. They provide us with that post-award assistance as we need it. And they help us with our reporting and our accounting. Initially, that was how they helped us. We now have a internal director of grants to do that, but that was because now we have so many grants, we have to have somebody help us do it internally because it became so large.
Dr. McCall, walk us through your first wins. That is, how you were awarded your first grant or grants and where these funds were focused to increase institutional effectiveness. If you can speak to how your students and your institution benefited, that would be terrific. And then any kind of compare and contrast with the old capabilities and now with this new college collaboration, any new capabilities that came about. So basically the infusion of this professional staff that came from Columbus State, and how you were able to leverage your existing community college staff with this other nearby collegial staff through Columbus that you speak about.
Yeah, sure. Um, you know, the good and the bad part is we submitted the Title III grant in the fall of 2019, or early 2020, and of course we all know what happened in March of 2020. The world shut down, and we spent the rest of the spring and most of the fall just trying to figure out how to keep things operating and try to keep people safe. And then in September of 20, we were notified that we received our Title III grant. And prior to receiving that Title III grant, we were typically, we weren't getting that much in grant funds. And so this was a huge infusion of money for us, $2.2 million over a 5-year period for an institution that has a $15 million budget is a lot of money. And we were ecstatic. In the midst of all of the COVID stuff, it was a silver lining in the midst of everything. And then about 2 weeks later, we received notice that we received our first ever National Science Foundation grant. And to go to my board and say, this partnership that I shared with you that we've agreed to, that you were questioning me about, you weren't sure if they were going to give us their best effort. Was it really going to pay off, or are we just wasting our money? We just returned our initial investment 15-fold at this point. And so it was a huge celebration in the midst of all the chaos that came with COVID. And then trying to figure out how we're going to implement so many of the things we had in the Title III grant in the midst of COVID became a big challenge for us. But it was a huge win for us at that point. And the funds really for Title III were focused on several different areas. One is we wanted to create a one-stop for all of our student forward-facing functions. So like many institutions or buildings that were built many years ago, we called it like the Marion Tech Shuffle. You had to go down this hallway to get to admissions. You had to go down that hallway to get to financial aid. You had to go back over next to admissions to get to, the registrar or whatever. You're going back and forth. And every time they walked back and forth, there was a front door that there was a chance for them just to walk out. When you walked in our front door, it was a brick wall with no signage. It wasn't welcoming. And so some of the money was for us to redesign the front entry of our facility and put our business office, our admissions office, our registrar's office, and the financial aid office front end services all right next to each other in one space where you walk in, and students then didn't have to re-describe their issue every time they walked to a different office. The person sitting right next to the financial aid person was the business office, and the business office person could hear what was happening if they needed to, or they could walk them over to them real quick, or lean back actually, because they're literally right next to each other, and say, hey, this student's having an issue with this, can you help them with that? And that lowered the potential barriers that students were facing just from the entry portion of coming to the college. Because we heard so many times students talk about, especially our first generation students, talk about that they had driven on the campus 2 and 3 and 4 times and never got out of the car. And they finally got out of the car and walked in the front door. The last thing we wanted to do is have them walking all over the building, not knowing where they're going, and then having to repeat their story and their issue a dozen different times to a dozen different people. So that was one of the big things we wanted to do. One of the other ones we wanted to do was create we had a small, what we called a connection center. It wasn't even a physical space really at that point. It was more of an idea of we partnered with a local snack food manufacturer who was giving us extra snacks, snack bags of chips and different things we were putting out for our students to have. We really wanted to have a facility, a place so we could have a food bank. We could have resources for them that were non-academic in nature that they needed to stay engaged. And so we were able to help use the Title III money also to do that, but then also hire in our community, we have this program called an employee resource network, where you can purchase time of a employee resource navigator to be in your facility and work with your employees to make sure that they have things like if they have childcare issues, how can they help them, connect them to social services or transportation or food insecurity or housing or utilities. And when I heard about this, I went to the group and said, hey, can I buy a portion of that time? Because all those employees you're talking about, they're my students. And the issue that they have coming to work are also the same issues they have coming to the college. And so we were able to use this money to start buying time of what we could now call a student resource navigator, who spends time whose office actually is in the Connection Center and is available to help all of our students, both Aspire students, our high school dual enrollment students, our on-campus students, our online students, our students who are at 2 correctional institutions that we serve, when she can help them, and even our alumni. So she works across all those groups to help with any of the services that they might need along the way. We have the food pantry there now. We have counseling there. So all of that was born out of these Title III dollars. We knew we needed more staff in our advising office. This allowed us to hire more advising staff. And we also knew we had to update a lot of our software systems that were antiquated and weren't serving students at the speed at which we all are accustomed to being serviced now through, when we go to Amazon or wherever. And so we bought some new software that allowed us to be able to reach out to students more quickly and respond more quickly. And so all that started that progression through our Title III grant, all those different things happening along the way. And then the National Science Foundation, it was really born out of the idea that we had several local companies saying, hey, we need employees who can not only diagnose something that's happening, but maybe help prevent it and understand the connection between the IT side and the mechanical side of a facility. And that was really the growth of our smart manufacturing program. We were able to create a new major and a new certificate as part of that grant, and buy new equipment that allowed us to do the training and hire a faculty member. So gave us resources to do all those things in between that we wouldn't have had resources to be able to hire that faculty member or to buy that equipment otherwise, because we were operating on such a slim margin as it was. So it was really the big wins for us getting those and then how they kind of fit into everything. And the great part was working with Columbus State is they had expertise not only in the grant writing, but they could help us understand what parts of the things that we wanted to do would be most impactful to the grant readers and the grant scorers. And, we would say, well, we want to do this. And, well, that's great. We can put that in there, but you need to, this is going to be something that they're really going to look for. How does this fit within your model and your goals? And we say, okay, well, we can make this work because this is important to us as well. And this is how we could see it fitting. And so their support to us along the way, their guidance with us, their ability to either us to go to Columbus or they came to us, and we would sit down for 3 hours in an afternoon or in the morning, and then all go to lunch together. We really became a team, not of friends, not two different groups of employees from two different institutions. We really are I feel like we all work for the same institution at a lot of times because of how we interact and the fun we have together. When we were at Bellwether, we were going out, we'd go out to eat together and we just have a good time. And we get along really well. And the trust that was built through this work, through those first two grants, has just continued. And the folks we work with now, there's been a little bit of a turnover here or there, but we've been able to continue to keep that trust going. And so, that's been amazing. And the change for the college, to give you an example, prior to the Title III grant, our very first one there with Columbus State, we had 3 people who were on grant funds of some sort, not full grant funds, but some portion. We have over 12 staff now who are on grant funds. And the impact of that is that when the Title III grant ended at the end of 25, everybody that we had hired through that Title III grant, we brought on board as a full-time employee because we've been able to grow our revenue through improved student outcomes, be able to keep all those employees on the payroll. And so the services they were providing through the grant are now continuing to provide services to our students who are here now. And that was one of the things we truly wanted to make sure happened when we started this whole process.
That's great. No, wow, that is just amazingly, that's just an amazing trajectory from where you were to where you are now. The trust, the guidance, the melding of these two campuses, the building of professional development, which you basically outlined well too, but I felt like the Title III funding was like the base, right? Your foundation. You need to improve your support services, both the academic and the non-academic supports, which if you're not from a rural community, you don't realize, well, yeah, I mean, well, there are not many people or stores or restaurants you can get food from. So how are you going to build a pantry? And there's no public system of transportation. So you're it. And so all of these things, I think people that don't live in rural communities take for granted. Not that the need isn't there, but somehow there are better opportunities for that need to be addressed. Just doesn't always happen in rural communities. And I felt like I was really keen into that and learning a lot from this conversation, by the way. So thank you for that. And then the NSF funding, which help you put these students into a new market, right? I mean, that smart manufacturing isn't something that you hear about every day, but it's a growing need, and those folks are going to get jobs because that's just where we're headed. We're there now. And so building the foundation, then also making sure you have innovative programmatic opportunities for your students, I just felt like was a really strong infusion of funding for the right things. So thank you for sharing all that. Let me go ahead and ask this next question, which I think, and you've walked us through the wins. We've talked about the framework, talked about the critical issue and why it was so important to help build a scaled fundraising arm, so to speak. But let's talk about the great stuff, which are the outcomes. So what were your measurable and you documented outcomes that you found were important, obviously important enough to win the Bellwether Award? And then say more about your program's evidence of success. So any key assessments or significant outcomes, again, that you can share would be wonderful.
Sure. Yeah. If we go to the next slide, this is just the idea of we started out with those two, the Title III grant and NSF grant, and since that point, here are all the other grants that we have been awarded through the partnership with Columbus State. And as you can see, 25 was a good year for us, um, and it's been amazing the transformation it's had for the college and the things that we've been able to do and to both support students but bring in new technology, new programs, reach out to students through talent search through the TRIO program, and that was one that I'd been wanting for a long time. My first real full time job in higher ed, I was I worked in TRIO. I was an associate director for an upward bound math science program, and then I ended up becoming a director of a upward bound math science and a talent search program all at the same time. And I knew the impact those programs had, so I wanted us to get one of those. At least one of those grants, and I'm hoping we can get more somewhere along the way. But cybersecurity, rural student support. We have two different rural student support programs. Basically, we're able to get in there. Advanced manufacturing in rural community colleges, STEM in rural communities. So you see a theme there. We went down the rural theme a lot because the college going rate in our area is low. And so how do we help high school students and those who have graduated re-enter higher ed and especially into the higher paying STEM fields and the fields that are in demand in the state of Ohio and in our region. And so those have been amazing. We went from not having any official NSF grants ever in our history to having six in the span of 6 years, which is pretty phenomenal. The next to last one, the STEM grant, there is the 998,000. 600,000 of that is for scholarships. So we've been able to fund scholarships for students who want to go into STEM that we didn't have the money for within our own budget or our foundation to do otherwise. So hugely impactful. The next slide kind of gives you an idea of where we were prior. We were spending anywhere from $300,000 to $500,000 a year in our annual budget in grants, and most of those were that 20 to 50 to 100,000 or state grants. After the partnership grants award, they increased to over 2 million. We're averaging over 1.4 million a year. The last 2 years we had $3.3 million in our grant budget. And this upcoming year we have 3.1 or $3.2 million in our grant budget. And again, that was starting on a grant or on a fiscal budget of about 15 million, and you're adding 3 million to it. That's a huge increase and a huge impact on what a small institution is able to do when you have extra dollars that you couldn't find other places. And on the next slide, if you go on down there, this is just the graphical representation of that. You can see where we were coming up for FY27. We're right about where we were in FY26. You can see from FY16 up through FY21, we got close a couple of times, but a lot of those were due to state grants that they handed out. Basically, everybody applied and everybody got some money. But once we hit that FY22, FY23, it really started taking off after our partnership was really signed in the FY19, and the first grant was received. Actually, in FY21 was when we received the Title III grant. And then as far as the student outcomes, if you go to the next slide, these are all parts of our Title III grant metrics that we wanted to highlight and to hit. And so the numbers on the left are your benchmarks. The numbers, so they're the dark blue, the light blue are the outcomes. So we wanted to get more students to 15 credit hours in their first year because we know that that's a tipping point for them to continue on and to be retained. We didn't hit our total goal that we wanted, but we took that number from 39% to 58%. So that was a nice increase. Another one is getting students to take gateway math and English in the first 30 hours. Because the one thing we know most people do not like taking are English and math. And the last thing they end up taking are English and math, and that ends up becoming a barrier if they cannot pass to graduate. So we want to push that into the front. That was a total redesign of almost every single curriculum and every program we had to put those up front. That number Because of that redesign, it took us longer to start implementing that. So that number didn't grow as much as we want, but that number has increased since these numbers came out. Full-time persistence was at 59%, so that was fall to fall. We really wanted to push that closer to 75. We increased it. We didn't increase it as far as we want. The next three, though, are the ones that really were the things that we wanted to hit hard. And that was part-time persistence rate, fall to fall, and academic plans and staying on plans. 75% of our students, as we said earlier, roughly are part-time. Prior to getting the Title III grant, we were only keeping 28% of that 75% from fall to fall. So we were basically having to recruit a whole new class every single fall just to make up for the enrollment loss. In 5 years, we took that part-time persistence rate from 28% to 63%. It is almost the same as our full-time persistence rate. That has been a huge success for us. As a result, our enrollment from that and our dual enrollment work has went from about 2,100 students in the fall of 21, or in the spring of 21, maybe. In spring of this last year, spring of 26, we hit 3,815 students. Largest enrollment ever in the history of the college, 56 years. And a lot of that is due to this work. We wanted to make sure that, through guided pathways, getting students on an academic plan so they knew what they had to take, when they were taking it, and what it looked like, and keeping them on that plan was vitally important. As you can see, we went from only having 15% of our students on a plan to 97% of all of our students coming in the door now have a plan, an academic plan, before they finish their first semester. And we monitor that, and 95% of them have continued to have a stay on plan. And if they get off plan, we get an alert, and the advisors call them back in and say, hey, what happened here? Let's get you back on track. And then our graduation rate, as I said, when in 2015, our 3-year graduation rate was running around 12-15%. Or if you look at the 5-year, it was a little bit higher. It was probably in the 20-25% range. We wanted it to get to 61%. We didn't make it there, but we got it up to 52%. It's still not where we wanted to be. We wanted to be a lot higher between graduation and transfer. And we continue to work on that. It's actually one of our strategic plan KPIs for the next 5 years. But the improvement in our student outcomes, all of these things impacted really what the next slide is. And as I said, we are funded totally by student outcomes. In FY21 is when we got the Title III grant. As you can see, prior to that, and even up through the next 2 years, because all of the funding from the state is a 3-year lag. It's a 3-year average of the previous 3 years. And so you see we got the Title III grant in FY21, really started ramping up the work in 22, FY22, FY23. You can see what started happening with that 3-year average and where we started going. And I will tell you that in FY27, we were actually now over $11 million in state subsidy. So we went from an average of around $7.5 million to over $11 million in state subsidy because of the collaboration with Columbus State and the work that they helped us do on getting these grants to really address our student outcomes and how we can improve those student outcomes. And it's helped us increase enrollment, which has also helped us increase revenue. And obviously our state share of instruction has increased exponentially over the last 3 years, 3 fiscal years. We've increased over the last 3 fiscal years, we've increased over $3 million in state funding total, which is a crazy thing to think about. Again, when you're talking about a college that had about in 23, 24, we probably had about a $16 million budget. This upcoming year, we will have, including the grants, we will have a $23 million budget. And that is a huge increase for us and allows us to do so many other things. And I'm proud to say that of all the positions that were in the grants that were supposed to be continued, all those positions have been continued because of that growth and that success in funding, both from enrollment and from state subsidy.
Wow, that's terrific. No, thank you for all outlining all the outcomes from the obviously the historic gains in funding, your persistence rates, students on target, on plan. All of those things are really helpful to ensuring that they come in and they get out and they are much better for it. And hopefully, what you have instilled here with your academic support services, your counselors, all of those things, guided pathways, which we know is super important, continue onward. But the trajectories on all of these outcomes that you showed look just tremendous. So congratulations on all of that. And really in a short period of time when you basically had no grant fund writers, and then you're building the system and then flying it because a lot of that is just ensuring that the people that you have on staff are learning from your colleagues at Columbus State. But in addition to that, some of these years are going through your COVID years, so it's just really amazing, and I hope that I think you keep talking about things you didn't hit. The things you did hit are fairly important, and it, as we all know, bringing a part-time student to persist above 50% is pretty darn good. And so we
Yeah,
always want to do better, but that
we
is
do.
that is pretty amazing. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. And I do have to say, we also, one of the things we also were able to do is we were able to join the National Center for Inquiry and Improvement. They had a program for rural community colleges called the Rural Guided Pathways Project. And we were able to join that as well in 22. And so those things combined with the work we were already doing, all the stuff that we were learning through the Guided Pathways program were things we wanted to do as part of the Title III grant. So they just meshed so well together, and it's really just been a snowball effect of compounding of the growth. So it's been, they've been phenomenal. The Title III stuff has been phenomenal and the grant partnership with Columbus State. It's all kind of worked its way together to help us be successful.
Absolutely. No, yeah, it definitely shows. Um, so my next question to you is, as a rural college winning the Bellwether Award, what did your team learn by preparing for and being a part of the competition, and what does it mean to receive this high honor?
Well, we were a finalist the year before, and being new to the program, I had heard about Bellwether many years ago. I had a colleague who was in Florida back when it started over in Florida, and he told me we need to be part of it. He was actually a reviewer for it many years ago for the Bellwether. He was one of the judges, and he said, "You guys need to do this." And I'm like, "Well, I don't have anything to submit." I'm like, I'm year two of my life as a college president. I haven't done anything yet that I feel worthy of submitting. Um, and so when we started doing this, I started searching back out for Bellwether, and coming to it, 2 years ago, we weren't sure what we were to prepare for. Um, but being there and listening to the schools, and I'm not saying this because I'm on here with you, Dr. Martinez, but um, my colleagues and I that were there really said that the opportunity to sit and hear from these other institutions and the neat things that they're doing, and the things they're doing that are having an impact, was as beneficial to us as any conference we'd ever been to, because they're all community colleges and they're all talking about innovative things that we could potentially replicate. And that was really kind of an impetus for us to say, okay, here's how they're doing these things. What can we, and we brought stuff back that we said, okay, they did it this way. It may not work that way for us, but we can do this here. So it was very informative for us in that sense. But what we learned is, I think internally between Columbus State and ourselves, is I think sometimes we celebrate when we get the grant, but then we're off to the next grant. Because it's always this search to help. Okay, well, now we have this need, and we have this need, and this was a chance for us to step back and say, "Wow, look what we have been able to do." We get caught up in that rat race of saying, "Okay, what's the next thing we have to get to? What's the next thing we have to get to?" And this gave us a chance to sit back and I guess feel the success and appreciate the success, because we know that not everybody has been able to do that, and the success we've had doing it in the unique way that we've been doing it, in that cooperation between a large urban institution of 27,000, 28,000 students and a small rural institution of 3,800 students. And I think that was really neat for us to get a chance to do it. And what it means for us from an honor perspective, you know, it was one of those things that I joked that we were in the back of the room when you were announcing, and of course, our category had to be the last category. So you're sitting there the whole time with, butterflies in your stomach. And my colleagues were on the other side of the table that was basically down the aisle. And whenever you announced our name, they were halfway down the aisle before I ever got around the table. And I'm like, wait for me. And I think that was one thing to talk about the honor that it was, the excitement that was felt by all of us there, and the fact that when we came back, the excitement on campus for us winning. We were highlighted in our local news. We've talked about it in a lot of different places. Columbus State and Marion Tech worked together to put out publicity about it. As I just shared, we talked about some of our success in a article in the CC Journal that just came out. It's been amazing from my point of view, and I've said this a few other times. I don't think that as a Midwesterner growing up in a small rural area, I grew up on a small farm in Southern Ohio and Appalachian Ohio. You were never brought up you were never brought up and told that you had, or that you should toot your own horn. You're to be humble. You didn't make yourself better than anybody else. And you don't tout all your accomplishments. It's just not what you do. And I think a lot of times small rural community colleges have a hard time doing that because that's not who we are by nature. And it's not that we are better than anybody else. As I say in the article, we're not smarter than anybody else. We're not better than anybody else. We go to things like Bellwether. We've talked to other institutions. We see what other people who are successful, what are they doing? And how can we take what they're doing and try to make it work for Marion Technical College based on what we need? And so the fact that we have people contacting us now, contacting Columbus State, asking us how we do this, what does it mean for us? To me, that is one of the highest honors of receiving this award, is that other people now want to know what we're doing. And that, I think, that makes me proud of the team. That makes me proud of the college. That makes me proud of Columbus State, because you guys saw fit and the judges saw fit to honor us with this award, that others now see the great work that we're doing and are asking us how they can potentially do the same thing. And to me, that's the greatest honor that was bestowed upon us because of this award and the work that the Bellwether does.
Yeah, no, deservingly so. You all did a tremendous job, and our judges, they take their role very seriously. And for rural college, sometimes to get that honor is hard, as you kind of shared, because sometimes the external factors in terms of the support, the human resources you have, you're doing a great job, but maybe the scaling isn't quite there. And so our job as Bellwether, as the consortium, is to find those great programs to market, so you all can see yourselves as being here. And like you said, most every time after our award ceremony, folks will come up to me and my team and they say, it would have been wonderful to get the award. It was wonderful to get the award, but it was even better to listen to 5, 6, 10 teams and learn about their experience, because it's very similar to ours, and we're walking away with just so much knowledge about how we could respond to this critical issue that we're facing too. And so it's like a really great opportunity to have professional development as you're competing for an award. And so
Exactly.
I appreciate what you stated, and I as Bellwether, as a consortium, we're extremely proud of Marion Tech, and kudos to Columbus State also for taking on that role as well. So your success is our success, as we like to say. And so we congratulate you, and you know, you as a leader, because that wouldn't happen if you wouldn't have made that call. And there's a sense of vulnerability, I know, in doing that and saying, you know, we need help. And so had you not done that, I think this wouldn't have come to fruition. So Ryan, you also need to take credit when credit's due. So we appreciate you and all the hard work that you've done in your team. I guess the last question we have, because I know we're running out of time here. If you were consulting a college that had the same needs for more external funding, just maybe one or two tips of advice, what would you have them do? What would be your advice to them, particularly a rural college?
Yeah, I think I guess there'd be a couple of things. One, for us, it was the first thing was making sure we knew what we felt like we needed to do. Was that internal audit of where are we and what things do we want, what metrics do we want to move? Because you can't move all of them. What are the ones that are most important? And figure out what those are, and then decide how you're going to attack those. And that's really, we knew that we had these issues. We thought we were going to attack it by hiring a grant writer. That didn't work. So then, you know, and it's cliche, but you had to think outside of the box a little bit, right? And say, well, what if we partnered with somebody who has a great grant office already, and are very successful. And you know, Columbus State was at 25, $26 million when I called them, and they're at $90 million now in grants. Their staff has been able to grow through the partnership. And so it's really knowing what it is that you want to measure and what needs to be moved from, in our case, from a student success perspective. And then finding a way to make that happen. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to go ask for help from places. I could have, and Dave very easily could have said, no, you know, my team has to be focused on what we're doing here at Columbus State. I could have been like, I'm not going to ask somebody else for help. We're going to figure this out, fight the good fight. But Dave and I knew each other well enough, and we trusted each other enough to say, let's bring our teams together. And then the two leaders say, here's what we want to have happen. You know, here's the direction we want this to go. Here's how we want it to operate. And the teams from there trust the people that you put in place to manage it, give them the direction, get the right people in place, and let it grow. You know, because that's really what has happened here. We have great people from Columbus State. I have great people here. They work collaboratively together. We actually just submitted a joint co-op Title III grant together, Columbus State and Marion Technical College. Because we're both in Central Ohio, we were able to submit it together. So we just submitted a new Title III grant jointly. So that's how much we have actually moved that needle towards collaboration. And so we're looking forward to the outcome of that grant. Hopefully we'll find out in August whether or not we receive that. Maybe hopefully late July, but probably August. If we receive that, and again, that allows us to hire some personnel and do some other things from connecting students to internships and co-ops and that kind of stuff that we just haven't been able to do yet, that we know is our next needle that we need to move.
Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing your knowledge and your insights with us today. That's really been helpful at just having all of our audience walk through the process from the beginning stages of, as you say, auditing what you need to where you need to look at your gaps, and then trying to find funding and resources that would help you get there, and just working smart, right? So what do they say? Smarter, not harder. And going to those resources. Unfortunately for you, you had a great resource very nearby that wanted to work with you. And so that's important. But thank you for sharing all that information. Those are really good tips. And we just wish you the best for Marion Technical College. We hope you get that grant. For the rest of my audience, please consider applying for the 2027 Bellwether Award Competition. The portal submission is now open on our website at bellwethercollegeconsortium.com. It will close September 15th. And on behalf of Bellwether College Consortium, thank you again, Dr. McCall, for sharing more about this fruitful partnership. I wish you continued success. And this concludes our innovation session. Thank you.
Thank you.